Hi, I'm Henry. And, you know, like memorial service, I know, what do? You laugh, cry, you know what's proper. Whatever moves you, feel free to do it. I was really very fortunate to spend one of the last few days with Joe, a couple of days before he passed. And, you know, there's Joe. Even in bed, he's holding court, you know. He's covering all the essentials. And in retrospect, I'm looking at that conversation and saying, okay, this is kind of the, you know, what would I talk about the day before I die? So here are the essentials. The first, family. We talked about our wives. Debbie and I just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. Marcia and Joe, this September 2nd, would have celebrated their 40th. So we were talking about the role that our wives played and how crazy they let us be. So Marcia, thank you for sharing Joe all these years. Then we talked about Alex and my oldest James just got their MAs a month ago. And Joe hung on to make sure he was able to celebrate that. And so, of course, very proud. And then Max, you know, he's just, boy, he's got front page stories going out of this little rag now, really talking about what a great writing career is ahead of him. And Joe is trying to say, be patient with Eddie, my 21-year-old, who I said, I don't think he can write a thank you note. And then we actually talked about Cabell and what a wonderful addition he has been to the family. Then our conversation switched to friendships, and ours in particular. 34 years, Joe and I have been knocking heads. And in this setting, he was basically saying that it was largely based on, from him, his respect for my integrity. And I was almost bowled over because that's how I feel about him. And then I went on a little memory lane. Anybody walk with Joe, either here in Boston, downtown, or in San Francisco? It's a real workout. You know, I'd kind of trot, you know, and Joe would be striding, and luckily I'd be winded, but luckily I didn't have to talk because Joe had a way of telling you which building was built when, by what architect, where they imported the marble in the lobby. But anyway, it's a fascinating journey. Then, of course, as Ellen says, we talked about serious stuff, state of the world. And amongst other things that we covered was thinking about the current Bush administration and comparing it with the Nixon era. Now, those of you who have read your little thing about Joe know that the Nixon folks chased Joe to the West Coast. I guess I should thank them for sending Joe my way. But we sadly had to admit that as bad as the Nixon era was, it pales in comparison to the current situation. And finally, of course, we discussed baseball. Baseball is our metaphor for all the other joys in life. And we were wondering out loud, what would Willie McCovey have been like on steroids? And only you true baseball aficionados will get this one, but we were thinking Bobby Richardson would have had his hand ripped off in '62 if McCovey had been juiced. And now I'm going to do something, you're very privileged. Joe actually made up a game that we played, some of us played on the internet. It was your all-time baseball team, but of people that you have seen play. So here it is. Now this was great because I could argue with Joe about baseball. nothing else. McCovey's on first, Morgan's on second, Brooks Robinson at third, Louis Aparicio at short. Frank Robinson was his left fielder. He put Griffey Jr., Ken Griffey Jr. in center field as Joe slyly avoided the Mays-Mantle-Snyder debate. And in right field, he put Roberto Clemente behind the plate, Johnny Bench, and his pitchers were Koufax, Marichal, Gibson, Spahn, and of the local guy, Louis Tiant. Now, how can anybody argue with impact players like these? Joe was, without a doubt, an impact player. An impact player is someone who is so good, they change the nature of the game. And his Harvard quarterbacking exploits aside, Joe was truly an impact player in the game of life. There have been two impact players for me, one my late father, and then there was Joe. Joe taught me how to live life with purpose, and now he showed me how to die with dignity and grace. Saying goodbye to Joe on my final visit was hard. We both knew it would be, the last time we'd see each other in this realm. And as we were hugging our final goodbye, Joe sensed my emotion and the kind of the awkward moment. And he pats me on my back, and he whispers in my ear, "Don't worry, my friend. We'll see each other a little bit later." And so we will.